Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, String Things by Mel. My name is Melissa. I'm a stay-at-home mom living in Vancouver, Canada, and on my channel, I chat and share everything about my knitting hobby. Today, I am sitting in our new home. We've been here for just over 2 weeks, and it really does feel like a home. It feels like we've been here longer than that, like, in a good way, and everyone has transitioned very well, especially Darcy and my cat Tiberius. I was worried about my cat. I was thinking that he might, hide somewhere for a bit, but totally fine. He seems to like the extra space, and we do let him go into the yard with supervision, and he's been out there hunting, catching grasshoppers, and eating them. Some of you might think that's gross, but whatever, extra protein for him. And Darcy, the first few days, would wake up and ask if we were staying here in the new house, and I would say yes. And she would say, "Good, I don't want to go back to the small place." So, yeah, she's been enjoying living in the new house, and it's been kind of busy. I feel like definitely the first week didn't have a chance to really sit down and enjoy the place because or I was very determined to unpack as much as possible. Probably unpacked about 90% of all the boxes in the first few days. Um, yeah, I was like, I'm not living amongst boxes. We're moving in. We do have, semi-ambitious plans for renovations, but we're not going to do that until next year because we want to live in the space, see how it feels, where the light hits at different points. Like how does the breeze move through when we open windows and things like that. Really, collect a lot of data about our home and then go back to some plans that we did have mocked up. We do have some plan drawings that we had prepared before putting an offer on this place. That was all part of, deciding to put an offer on this place. And then, yeah, revisit that early next year. And then hopefully next year, choose what we want to renovate next year. Uh, Budget wise, we can't do everything that we want to do next year, but we're going to do as much as we can, what we prioritize. We do plan on living here for hopefully, a number of years. I don't know if this is the forever home, but yeah, nothing has to be done all in the first year. So we're just going to enjoy it and really make sure that we're making the right decisions in all areas. So that is a bit of update about home, living here. Darcy is well and settled into her new preschool, so that's why I get to sit here and I have a chance to record. I'm back on my, few hours a week alone time, knitting time, which I'm very excited for. I didn't have this for 2 months. In case you didn't know, I took a 2-month summer break, and partly because of the whole buying and selling situation, but also Darcy was out of school. So, hands were a little busy. Didn't have as much time to do things like this. So, grateful to have it back. That was my first taste of what it was like to have a kid out of school and having to entertain them for a whole summer. And yeah, I like preschool. I like Darcy in preschool. So let's get into today's agenda. I have one finished object to share, and it is my Paul cardigan. This is my second time doing a Paul cardigan, and I don't do a lot of pattern repeats, but the Paul cardigan is just one of those patterns with, if you follow all the instructions and the finishings, it is a really well detailed, well done pattern in terms of like, how the stitches line up and yeah, just how it looks. It has a 2x2 rib detail on the back of the collar, double knit button band, and it's got, a good amount of positive ease. So for my second version, this one here, I've used a superwash yarn. It's Drops Baby Merino in the, I think it's called dark gray. It's like a charcoal color. And I have knit this size extra small, exactly the same way, number of stitches and rows, rounds as my first version. However, this one came out just a little bit smaller, but that could be because I put this in the dryer. So it's superwash yarn. I've used this yarn before on my second version of my Levitate wrap, so another pattern repeat there. For that one, for that garment, I held the yarn double to get gauge. This is kind of like a sport weight yarn. I will say that I think I like this yarn held single in terms of as a fabric. I still like that Levitate wrap, but if I had to choose, I would choose to hold this yarn single and not double next time. Just holding it double, maybe at a tighter gauge, could work, but it's not bad. Just saying if I had to choose. So yeah, so this one turned out just slightly smaller. And let's see, I have some of the specs in my notebook, but I put it in the dryer because I really wanted to wear it out. My husband and I had kind of like a spontaneous opportunity to go out for dinner because my sister offered to babysit, and this is when we were still living at our old place. And so we jumped on that, and I just finished this. And so Paul Cardigan number 2 is, where's my, oh, I am looking at the right page. Okay, so in terms of, with respect to the final measurements, that's listed in the pattern for size extra small, this version is 10 centimeters smaller in terms of bust circumference and 1 centimeter smaller in the armhole circumference and 5 centimeters shorter in overall length with respect to the pattern measurements for size extra small. And that's fine. I actually really like the size. It's really comfortable. Now, with respect to comparing this to my first version, the Glowworm, the green version that I wore to Knit City, Toronto. So that green version was only a couple centimeters smaller than the pattern bust circumference and only a couple centimeters shorter in overall length. Otherwise, it's very close to the pattern measurements for size extra small. For this sleeves, I made my sleeves longer than the pattern. In the pattern schematic, it doesn't give sleeve length, which I guess is fine because I knew kind of based off measurements how long to make my sleeves the first time, and I liked that length, so I did that again the second time. But it does feel a little bit shorter again because I put this in the dryer. I imagine it will probably stretch out a bit with wear. I could, go back and wet block it as well if I wanted it to be longer, but as fine as is. I like it. I actually like wearing this one open. I don't know why there's difference. This one I like to wear open. The green one I like to wear closed. It could be maybe that difference of breast circumference, perhaps. Like this one's just not quite enough positive ease to wear closed. I don't know. But I really like it. I really like the fit. I really like the color. It's very just neutral, simple, basic color. It can get a little bit dirty. That's fine. The other positive about this one is that it doesn't have any mohair, so it's not super warm. So I can wear this right now. It's still technically summer, although summer's ending at the end of this week. But it's still quite, warm and sunny here. Like, 16, to 19 degrees Celsius during the day. So that's not quite sweater weather for me. Like by the afternoon, I can't wear a sweater kind of thing. But it's very comfortable. And this kind of yarn, though, I will say that if you are going to use it, you do want to knit it with a slightly tighter tension than maybe you think. And it even says this in, I don't know if it doesn't say this on the ball itself, but I purchased this from Wool Warehouse and they have little descriptions from the yarn companies in their yarn listings. And it does say to knit at a little bit of a tighter tension. And that's because of the kind of like spin that this yarn has. It's got like a twist to it, which makes it very springy. And so that is why it says to knit at a little bit of a tighter tension. Um, the other kind of like wow things, again, I will say about this button band, about the details. So usually when you knit a button band, you start at one end and you work your way up and you work your way around and work your way back down. For this pattern, because there's a 2x2 rib collar, there's a section in the back from here to here that you work separately. And then the button bands are worked from these ends and they work down. And that means that the stitches are going in the same direction on both sides. And that also means that when you line it up with the selvage stitch on your panels, all of that lines up nicely as well. It's those little details that I really like. So I really like that. And it's not super noticeable if you do it, the regular way of starting at one end, going all the way around. Most people probably wouldn't notice. That is something that I pick out though, because I really pay attention the direction of the stitch and how that looks and how that lines up. So for this cardigan, all the stitches are running in the same direction, and you have like a full stitch next to, from the button band into the body of the panel, where sometimes when you pick up a stitch, sometimes it's like a half stitch. So that's something I really like. Also, again, really love how the buttonholes are created on this. Generally, when you do a double knitted button band, you have to break the yarn as you're working back and forth across to make the buttonhole, but this one you do not. And it's so clever. It's excellent. I am just like, when I did it on the first cardigan, I was like, wow, I never thought of it doing it this way. But once you do it, you're like, wow, this makes so much sense. And it's awesome. I have to say, it's just awesome. So lots of like nice little techniques and finishes that I've learned from doing the Paul cardigan that I definitely want to carry through to other cardigans or other garments in the future. So that is my second Paul cardigan. Will I make a third? Not this year, maybe not next year, but it's definitely in my like top patterns to repeat. There's only 3 patterns I believe I've ever done repeats of. That would be this Paul cardigan, the levitate wrap, and the autumn leek pullover. So yeah, not very many times I have done pattern repeats, but these are, I would recommend, solid patterns to do. So that's all for finished objects, just the one to share. Again, very busy summer, so haven't been doing too much in the finishing department, but that is okay because my goal for this year was to make fewer garments. And I was looking at kind of a tally that I keep throughout the year, and I've definitely made fewer garments, and that makes me feel good because I was actually worried about, space to store these, and then just this is supposed to be a slow craft, and I felt like I was knitting too fast. Um, Not a problem that a lot of people complain about, but yeah, I was way too efficient or just knitting way too much before. So I'm glad the number is lower. So I'll get into the whips that I'm working on. First one is the test knit of the Melides dress. The pattern, this is a revamp of a pattern from Vert Knit. I cannot recall when the dress pattern was originally released, but it's being re-released because there are just some tweaks and also additional sizes. And last time I shared this, I don't even know if I had reached the skirt portion yet, but I am on the 5th ball of yarn. The yarn I'm using is from Knitting for Olive. It's the pure silk yarn. The testers, as a tester, we receive discounts from Knitting for Olive for using the yarn and ordering directly from them. So thank you. It was a nice discount. But 5 balls in, and in terms of length, I think it's at my knees now. I'm going for kind of mid-calf length. So this is what I have left of the 5th ball. Definitely will need the 6th ball. Based on a quick calculation for this dress in terms of determining how much yarn to use, my calculation was for 6 balls, but that was before knowing that based on the pattern gauge, but I'm not knitting at the same row gauge, so I feel like that's going to affect yardage. But I do have extra yarn, so I have more than 6 balls of yarn, so it's okay if I need to go into a 7th, but it would be nice to stick with 6. I don't know why, like I just like the number 6, I guess, but yeah, it's a lot of work on 3mm needles. Like, wow. There are some days where I'm working on this and I feel like, oh gosh, I wish this was just done already. And then some days where I'm like, wow, I can't believe like I'm making a dress with 3mm needles and this isn't breaking my hands. Crazy. But I don't work on it every day. It's kind of like an every other day kind of thing, and usually only at daytime because that's when my hands are kind of the freshest, I guess, the most limber. Um, but yeah, what a difference between 3mm and 4mm, because 4mm is my like optimum needle size to work with, and then 3mm is just enough different. Even though it's 1mm difference, just enough different that it's not something that I could work on all day like 4mm needles. It's also a combination of the pure silk. It's not as forgiving on the hands, but I have reached a good comfort level and tension. I originally started out using bamboo needles, but now that I'm just going back and forth, there's only a few increases every so often on the skirt portion. I am using metal needles now, because that's how comfortable I am with my tension and with this yarn at this point. So I just have some Chiaogu needles. Also because the bamboo ones I was working with before were like too slow for me. They were grabbing the yarn too much. And I'm using my Chiaogus because they have a nice pointy tip, which helps with doing the increases, the make one right and make one left. I was using some other metal needles that I have from Addi, but I found the point just not pointy enough, and it was causing too much like claw hand action to try to get the increases, to execute the increases. So I'm using my Chargus, which generally I don't like because I don't particularly enjoy the stainless steel metal on metal sensation. Addy needles are not stainless steel, so that's why they are more tolerable, but it's okay for this project. Um, so yeah, a lot of just back and forth right now, and it's unfortunately it feels like it's dragging on because there's more and more stitches as I go because the skirt's getting larger in circumference until I finish. So I have almost 300 stitches on my needles at this point, and I'm making, one of the smaller sizes as well. So I'm not trying to complain, but if you are larger than me, you're gonna have even, more stitches than that. But yeah, that's almost 300 stitches on here. Um, so it can be a lot. It like one row takes like many, many minutes to do, and I have to think about if I'm sitting down and maybe Darcy might need something soon. I have to think about, what can I start another row? Because I don't like leaving it in the middle of the row and like packing that away. I just have this thing that's like, I don't like leaving it in the middle. Whereas when you work in the round, it doesn't matter whether you've finished a full round or not. It's in the round, it packs away nicely. Um, yeah, so I will try to insert maybe some extra footage of this, but the fabric is looking really nice. I have very little rowing out, which is very nice, which is something that does happen to me depending on the fiber. Um, yeah, I'm hoping this fits. We shall see. I've ordered some. buttons for this. So because I'm working at a different row gauge, so I have more rows per 10 centimeters than the pattern. So I figured that I would need a different button size. So the recommended button size is 9mm needles, and there is the option that you can just slip the buttons through the stitches. Like you don't have to make buttonholes, but there are instructions for buttonholes if you prefer to do it that way. So I kind of like the idea of not making any buttonholes, but then I also thought, how will I know exactly where to button if I don't have a buttonhole? So I don't know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I ordered smaller buttons from one of my go-to Etsy shops. It's called, what is it called? I'll put in the description. Um, but I ordered some really cute little 7mm mother of pearl buttons. They're not vintage buttons, I don't believe, but they are very just like nice uniform, just 2 hole buttons. And I did test these on my swatch and they do just slip right through. I wonder if they slip through too well. I do have slightly larger buttons if these don't work, but I'm really hoping these work because I bought these specifically for this project. I don't know what else I would use them for. They weren't very expensive, but I want to get out of the habit of just buying so many buttons all the time. Like I don't need to have a large button stash, but I have built a button stash. So that's the Melides dress. The deadline is, what day is it? Yeah, I think the original deadline was actually 2 days ago, but many of us, I want to say many of us, a few of us are still working away. And Inesh wanted us to have lots of time to, finish the dress. So she was not in any rush, no pressure to finish the dresses by the deadline. I'm hoping I can finish by the end of the month though, because I do have another test knit that I'm working away on. And I also cast on quite late for that one too. So yeah, I haven't had this kind of feeling of, what if I don't finish in time before? But that's kind of the boat I am in right now. I also don't want to work with 3mm needles and pure silk anymore. As great as the fabric is, we're heading into fall. I want to get into my fall knits. So I'm hoping that if I dedicate all of kind of like preschool time, like an hour a day kind of thing, 3 rows a day, it does work out to be a lot of progress. So let's hope I can get this done by the end of the month. Then I can focus on all the woolly projects. So speaking of the woolly projects, I will now share the other test knit that I am working on, which is the Clara Sweater from Carissa CL Knits on Instagram. And so this one started end of August, but I didn't cast on until a few days ago. But this one is like a DK weight, and it's lovely pullover with cable details on the neck, the end of the sleeves, and the end of the body, and also kind of down the shoulder. It's a drop shoulder, top down construction. I've already done the kind of back yoke area. You can see the cables runs down the shoulder and down the sides of the back. And I finished one front and I'm on another front here. So progress is, very quick. Again, I've said before, 4mm needles is my optimum size, so I can work quickly. So that's why I wasn't too concerned about starting so late. The deadline's end of October. As long as nothing happens, like I can easily knit a DK weight sweater in, like 3 weeks, even less if I really needed to. So I am using a combination. So for the test, you could use either a single DK weight yarn or hold like a fluffy strand with a fingering weight strand. So because I have so much of this in my stash, I'm using Knit Picks palette, the Bare Undyed yarn, which is very similar to Cascade 220 fingering if you ever used it. I use this held double for a Hannah cardigan my size. I use this for a Mouche Bear for my daughter. It's like a warm, little bit runs yellow bare yarn, and I'm holding it with from Sunday Fibre Co. the Cumulus Mohair in the color Unicorn, which has very subtle blues and pinks and almost a little bit purple. The base, it's kind of overall like a very cool, almost gray. And then in the fabric itself, very subtle color change in there. A little bit of pooling, but that is okay with me. But yeah, the combination of the warm bare yarn and the cool mohair, it's still, I think still leans more warm, but it's a very neutral. Um, I thought it'd be like maybe too like a fluffy light sweater for me. We'll see. If I end up not wearing this very often, I may gift it. I might ask one of my cousins if she would like it because she likes to wear like white sweaters. Um, yeah, she has a toddler too, and she's just like, yeah, I don't care. I'll wear white. If it gets dirty, I clean it. I need to be more like her. Um, but the details on here are really lovely. So you have this cable that runs along the shoulder and it goes down just like the edge of the back. And then that's it. So there's no like cabling on like the front as well. That's just like there's just going to be one single cable that runs down the side, kind of like bias to the back stitches. And then the same cable all the way around crew neck and sleeves and the body. And I haven't done any kind of pullover or sweater with cabling instead of ribbing, so I'm excited just to have something different for that. So that is what I'm also working on with a deadline. So I only have 2 test knits right now. I actually applied for another test knit. I didn't get picked for it, and I'm really glad I didn't because I didn't knit for, the first week and a half living here. So yeah, I need to stop being so ambitious about my knitting time. Really. But it was another 4 millimeter like DK weight project. So in my mind, I thought, well, if I get picked, I can knit it really quickly. And I need to stop doing that. I think that's why I made so many garments last year too. So that is my test knit, the Clara Sweater. I believe the release will be perhaps sometime in November, I think, if the deadline is end of October. So next whip, because I just needed something else to work on that didn't involve 3 millimeter needles and me referring to a pattern too often. So I cast on some slippers. So there's that free pattern from Sandnes Garn to make felted slippers. And I've seen a couple people make them. There's Hannah from Hannah G Knits. And also Megan at Bramble Ridge, she told me she's made these before. So this is my first time trying, and I've already made the first slipper. I didn't gauge swatch, which is like, I'm a faithful gauge swatcher. And I didn't for these because I thought, I don't know, it's kind of like a scarf. Like you just do it, hope for the best. That is my mentality for this project. But here's the first slipper. So I've made some modifications in terms of the construction. The original pattern, you start knitting in the round from here. So this is 2 layers of fabric. I didn't want to have to go back and seam it. And so I saw a video on YouTube from Inga's Knitting Lab. I took a lot of her modifications. And so I started mine with the Judy's Magic Cast On. Same number of stitches, same like where the decreases occur and everything is how I'm I've followed that. But yeah, Judy's Magic Cast On. And so and then you knit it around. And then you work on kind of like one foot here and come back and work the next one. And then you like felt it like this. And I'll show you in case some of you are like, huh, how was that a slipper? So kind of you have to put one of these inside the other. I'll just do it real quick. It's funny, I did try it on my foot. It's definitely too big for my foot as is right now, which is good because with the felting process, it's going to shrink. And this is a very crude way quick way of doing this, but you can see one is in the other, and there's the hole where you put your foot. Like that. And yeah, so it's kind of crazy that this is going to turn into a slipper that fits me, given that the felting process actually works. I'm using some leftover yarn from my stash from Briggs and Little. This is the same yarn I used for my must-have cardigan, which I made a couple years ago now. It's 100% wool. It's Canadian wool. This is the Briggs and Little Regal in the color brown heather, I believe. But that's when I didn't really look at yarn estimates. I think I just bought like a sweater's quantity worth of yarn, which was actually a lot of yarn. So I have about 3-ish skeins left of this yarn, which is a lot because the skeins are more than 100 grams. I think they're 115 grams or something like that. So I have a lot of this yarn. Didn't test how well this felts or not. I'm just going for it. So I will definitely take some before and after photos, maybe videos if I remember. But I do have the second one on the needles. And this one, after doing the first one, I have the pattern almost memorized. That's just how simple the construction is. I did make some modifications about where like my beginning of the round is. Versus what the pattern is because of my Judy's Magic Cast On and where I've chosen to have my beginning of the round. It's a bit different, but I'm still putting my like the cast on and decreases in the same location as the pattern. So this is just my kind of like weekend project now that Darcy's back in preschool, dedicating preschool time for my test knits. And then this is just for like in between chores, cooking, because I can just jump in and jump out of this one really easily. So there's that. And one last whip to share. So if you went to Flock, you may have seen me working on this, especially if you were at the rooftop party. And this is just something I'm working on for Darcy. I thought I'd make her just like a little simple scarf. And she's actually asked for it to be more like a sash, something to tie around her waist to make a big bow, because she's in a very princess phase right now. And so I'm like, sure, it could be both. So I just did I did an Italian cast on, I believe. Yes, and I'm working a double knit fabric to make Darcy's scarf. And it's in this really cool yarn that Darcy picked out herself from the store months ago. And she was so excited about getting this ball of yarn. I put it in the bag and she left the store hopping and skipping, so excited. It is a sock yarn and it is like a self-striping yarn and it has, I don't think it's stellina, but it has like a silver tinsel like strands going through it. Here's the ball. And here it is. It looks pretty skinny, like it's like a skinny scarf, but also she's a toddler, so Actually, when do you stop calling them toddlers? She's almost 4. So like it's proportional to her neck size and for her to be able to wrap it around if she is going to wear it around her neck. I thought I was gonna stop at 50 grams. This is a 100-gram ball. I thought I was gonna see how far 50 grams gets me, and I was gonna make her a new pair of mittens. And she said, no, I don't want mittens in this color. Fair enough. Okay. I'll just keep making this longer and longer then. But by chance, I have cast on, it seems to be like a really good amount of stitches because the stripes are working out quite well. I cast on a random number, like what is on here? I think like 38 or something like that. I just picked a number that I thought would seem good with double knitting and just went for it. And the striping, it works out really well. It's about 2 or 3 rows per kind of stripe color. So I put this marker in here because that's how much I had done when I was at Flock. And then this is how much I've done since then, like very on and off. But it goes by relatively quickly because it's not a lot of stitches. And double knitting is very therapeutic and relaxing for me. So I'll eventually get there. Once I know, I say, once I finish this, and then I cast on something else, the never-ending problem of cast-ons and too many whips. But yeah, oh, it looks really fun on camera. The stripes look really well on camera. But yeah, it is a superwash yarn. It could have been non-superwash, doesn't really matter, Darcy. So far, I can pretty much put any kind of fiber on her. She doesn't seem to mind. Very thankful for that. So that's the other kind of whip I am sort of working on. It's really nice. It fits right into my little mood bag. When I first bought this bag, I kind of had buyer's regret and thought, why did I buy such a tiny bag? Even though I had looked up the dimensions, and when it arrived, it just seemed so much smaller in person. And there was a good while where I thought I should return it. And then it's like, well, maybe it'll come in handy. And then I used it as a purse once, and it was a cute little purse. And but yeah, now I realize that it's good for little projects for Darcy. Like Moosh Bear was in this. So now I do like it. I do. But I always have that bit of regret, even after I finish like knitting something. Why did I knit this? Do I actually like it? Do I actually want this? I don't know why. It could be something that I just absolutely love now. There's always about a 1 to 2 week period post finishing that I'm like, did I make the right decision? I think it's just a me thing. All right. Now I want to share some yarn. I feel like I haven't shown a lot of yarn purchases. Of course, my last video was post flock, so I was showing that. Because when I sit down to make these videos, I kind of just forget about yarn that I've purchased. And I forget to just pull it out and share it. So I don't know if I've actually shown this yarn before, but I've had this yarn for a while. From Elise at Sunday Fibre Co., her True Colors collection. So the first launch, the non-summer one. So she did a launch of, I guess, the woolly fibers, and then she did a relaunch to include her summer bases. But this is from her True Colors collection. Sorry if I have shown this before, but I thought I didn't, so I'm showing it. This is her Mist DK base, which is 70% baby alpaca, 20% silk, 10% cashmere. It's a 3-ply, a DK weight, 100 gram skein, 225 meters. This is the color Tell Me the Chartreuse. It's kind of like my color. Oh my god, this is so soft. Like, yeah, I wish I had a bed made out of this. Just like hundreds of skeins of this just to like lie in. And you can see how soft it is too. Just like how it droops. It is 70% alpaca, and that I think, comes from the alpaca as well. Alpaca is more drapey than, say, wool. And it's got a little bit of a halo action going on. Color looks pretty true. What I see on the camera and in person, looks pretty on par. It is slightly tonal. There is, it's for a hand-dyed yarn, it's relatively solid, but it does have some tonality to it. And so I purchased 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skeins of this. So I have 500 grams, which is not quite a full, like oversized sweater quantity for me, but the plan for this yarn is to make the Maggie cardigan with long sleeves. I'm hoping I can get long sleeves out of it. I looked very closely at the yarn estimates and then took into account that there's usually a bit of an overage. And also because I would be knitting the smallest size. So I'm hoping the 5 skeins is enough. And so that's why I also took a chance. I could have ordered 6, but then I didn't want to have like extra of this yarn. I'd rather play yarn chicken. So that is what I'm doing. Yeah, Maggie cardigan from Petite Knit with long sleeves is the idea. Not sure how I'm gonna do the button band. I do like the rib look, but sometimes I don't, so I don't know. Cross that bridge when we get there. I think I'll wait to cast this on until next year, like in the new year. Just because there's some woolier projects, excuse me, that I want to get on my needles. But yeah, this is so soft. I hope Elise keeps Miss DK in her collection of bases because it is like, yeah, it's so nice. I imagine that this is going to be a pretty pilly project though, because I find alpaca pills more. And then also cashmere being such the soft, shorter fiber staple length yarn that it is, I expect it to pill. So yeah, maybe one of those garments with more maintenance. But once we get there, I'll of course let you guys know how it is. So the next is another local to me yarn, Megan at Bramble Ridge. Sorry, it's all this crinkling. Very kindly gifted me some yarn for some research. It is a base that it's not available. This is something that Megan is considering bringing in. She's also doing her own research right now, practicing dyeing it. She has kindly gifted me some undyed skeins. I only requested a couple skeins, but this, I'm going to hold it up to you guys. Here we go. It looks like brushed alpaca. However, it's not. This is brushed merino with nylon core, and it's super wash. What? I know. I thought that's pretty cool. I messaged Megan right away when she was like, "Do you guys think this is cool?" But I'm like, "Yeah." Also for like kids garments, people that just like superwash. So, yes, she messaged back and asked if I would be interested in trying it out. I'm like, heck yes. However, I have an ambitious queue. I can't do anything right away. And she said, that's totally fine. Take your time. So the plan is to make a swatch. And I'm going to put the swatch through its paces. I'm going to put the swatch in the washing machine. I'm going to put the swatch in the dryer and I'm going to see what happens. And then in terms of making a garment, I plan on holding it single. So this is a pretty hefty skein if I remember. But I showed Darcy this skein. Darcy, I received this package of yarn. What do you think of this one?
It's good.
No, you get to hold it.
Okay. I get to hold it?
Yeah. What do you think?
Let me talk about it.
Okay.
Because this is about 10 pounds of yarn and it is going to stay here at the new house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No. Okay.
What do you think about the feel of that yarn?
Uh, it's pretty because it's soft.
Yeah? How soft?
This soft because it has white feathers.
Oh, would you wear it?
Yeah.
Yeah? In her little, like, mocking vlog voice that she does of me now. I don't know whether to be proud or what. It's hilarious. It's not 10 pounds of yarn. It's just over 100 grams, and there's 600 meters in this skein. 600 meters. A typical skein, a 100-meter skein of mohair will have 420 meters. This is 600 meters, and it's brushed merino, much like brushed alpaca, so it's much more fluffier rather than hairy. So you can see how fluffy the strand here is. And I'll insert some photos comparing this to the Touch Me Mohair from We Are Knitters, the brushed alpaca from Drops, just so you can have like a visual look of it, because I happen to have all of those in my stash. So that will be part of my research as well. And I think once I've compiled all the information, I'll put it on my website as like a little blog thing. Because yeah, I have a website. Even I forget I have a website. I haven't done anything with it. One of my goals for next year, perhaps. So in terms of garment, yeah, hold it single. I'm thinking a cumulus blouse O-neck because I already have the V-neck in white. So I don't want to make another V-neck version. Oh man, this is really soft, like really soft. I asked Darcy if she'd wear this, and she said yes. And I asked her, like, how soft is it? She just goes, it's this soft. But again, I don't know if my child is a great representation of how soft something is, because she has not complained about any of the yarns I have put on her. I generally put her in alpaca, which I find to be more child friendly than wool. But yeah, this, I'm very excited to see how well this holds up in the washing machine. Um, it just, yeah, it's just very cool. So yeah, brushed merino nylon and very fluffy. It could be a very good alternative if you don't like mohair or suri, because it's merino. Like, I'm still like, wow, this is so cool. Um, so we'll see. I'm talking like how amazed I am about this, and we'll see if Megan actually bring this into her shop. Sorry, there's like something stuck in there. I gotta take that out. And yeah, so this is something I would like to cast on sooner rather than later, just because I'm very excited about it. And so I will keep you guys updated. Probably have more regular updates on Instagram. If you don't follow me yet on Instagram, check out my stories. I will post as soon as I've done like a swatch and washing test on there. Next yarn I have to show you is from Hobbii, and it's the new yarn from Pom Pom called Garland. I bought this with my own money, not sponsored, not gifted or anything like that. And sorry, again, the crinkling. I kind of feel like I don't know if I'm going to order from Hobbii anymore. Not that I've ordered from them many times. I think this is my second time ordering, because the other yarn I have received from them was gifted to me. But it's the duty fees that are expensive. So this yarn, where's the value here? Value for duty in Canadian, $203. And then I was charged $34 in like duty fees, which that's a lot. So I did buy 600 grams, so 2 sweater quantities worth. So 24 balls, $234, which, it's not that much to pay for two sweater quantities of $230 is not a bad price. But the fact that $34 of that was duty, it hurts. It hurts. But here's the yarn. Oh, I pulled up two of the same color. So it comes in a variety of shades, and I've bought what maybe some people will say like the most boring shades, but I bought the first one here is called Pixel. It is the like black, the darkest shade, color number 34. So Garland is 70% cotton, 30% alpaca. It is 50-gram balls, 105 meters. So it's like a worsted, yeah, worsted weight. I don't know if you can even call it heavy DK, perhaps. On the ball band here, it says 4.5 millimeter needles, 19 stitches by 26 rows, if that one helps you guys with indication of gauge. But it has what looks like a twisted cotton core. And then for this colorway, all the black is the alpaca. So when you knit this up, you're gonna get kind of like a marling heathering effect, which I thought was pretty cool. And for the kind of casual sweater that I plan to make, I thought that would work very well. This kind of effect doesn't speak very like formal, not that I make any formal knitwear, um, but there's like a certain vibe that you get from it. And so the plan with this yarn is to try out to see if I can hit gauge and make a Sadie sweater, which is a pattern from Ozetta. It's a very simple silhouette, rolled crew neck, rolled end of the sleeves and body, and drop shoulder construction. Good amount of positive ease on that one, just because I'm looking for something that's just easy to pull on. I find where we live now, it's like chilly in the morning, especially right now, chilly in the morning, warm during the day, and then it cools down quite a bit, especially when we hop on our bikes. And so the beach is not even 5 minute bike ride away. Like, also, we have, like, I can see the tide's out right now, but I can see the ocean from our house. We have an ocean view. The beach is just down that way. We live near a very popular beach path. Um, yeah, it's pretty cool. So we just like hop on our bikes and just like go sit by the water real quick, and then we're back. So it's nice to have something that's just easy to pull on and off. And I was very intrigued by this yarn being that it's 70% cotton, because I've been wanting to add some sort of summery fibers, but still a little bit woolly, things that aren't too warm. So this has like a nice like fluff to it that you would get with a suri or a mohair. However, with it being more cotton, I'm hoping it's not as hot. Um, like the, green version of my Paul cardigan, I love it, but the mohair, it's so warm. I have to wear it when it's like quite chilly out. Um, which is a shame. I'd like to wear it more, but I can't. It's too hot. So that is the color Pixel, like the black with the white cotton underneath there. And then again, very simple or a basic color. I don't remember the name of this one. Is there a packing slip in here? No. I'll put all the details in the description. But this is one of the, oh, is this cloud busting? It might be cloud busting, but it's a gray, pretty neutral gray. Again, the white cotton, the gray alpaca, nice little heathering effect. This one I just got because I'm very into gray, and I don't actually know what I'm going to make with this. So I just have a sweater's quantity of this gray yarn. It'll probably be another like cozy pullover. But yeah, just add into the stash, building the stash. So that's that yarn from Hobbii. Pom Pom. I believe it's still in stock if you want to buy it. And yeah, on Hobbii, if you've never ordered from them before, it does ship out of Denmark. The more balls of yarn you order, there is like a quantity discount. So keep that in mind when you are ordering. So the next bit of yarn I have is my kind of like wool warehouse haul. So I order from Wool Warehouse when I want to order drops yarn specifically. And it's not on anymore, but Drops was having a sale on yarns that have alpaca in them. And if you're wondering, like, how do I know when these yarns go on sale? So I followed the Drops account, our Garn Studio account on Instagram. And when they announce that there is a yarn sale happening, that means that sale will be happening at all of their vendors or stockists. So if your little yarn shop carries Drops yarn, then they will have it on sale. And that's, I think, part of the vendor agreement that they have. I'm not sure how the purchasing happens, whether they purchase, like they purchase at a wholesale price, but then I don't know if they pay back royalties, which is why you typically don't see, Drops on sale at different prices at different shops. It's generally the same across the board within your country. And because of whatever vendor agreement. So anyway, I have a bunch of Drops yarn that I purchased. So specifically, I have been waiting for Drops Air to go on sale. And because I am planning to make Darcy the Always Forever unicorn sweater, and I have purchased here the color beige, which actually is a mix of this kind of like orangey color, like a beige color mixed with gray for the main body of the sweater. And then the white for the unicorn. And then for the unicorn's mane, I was thinking of using some stash like pink yarn that I have. I may change my mind on that, but I didn't buy any yarn for the mane because I'm just gonna dive into my stash. So Drops Air is a 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide, 7% wool yarn. The polyamide is kind of the chain construction of the yarn, and the other fibers are like blown into it. So it's a really nice, light, and airy yarn, hence Drops Air. I have made a pullover, Karen pullover for Darcy out of this yarn before, and she really likes that sweater, so that's why I felt good about ordering Drops Air for her again. It's just a really soft and lightweight yarn to work with. And I also bought some for myself in dun, 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 gray. My battery died. Apologies if there's a shift in how I'm sitting. So I bought gray because I'm into gray, apparently. I'm not sad or anything. It's just anyway, I bought some gray. I think the plan is to make the cloud sweater from Petite Knit. So the cloud sweater is knit at a bulky gauge. I think it's 17 stitches if I recall correctly. And then there's the cloud blouse, which is knit with 2 strands of mohair, and that one's at a 20 stitch gauge. So I don't know. I'm gonna make swatches for kind of both and see which fabric I like more. Drops Air, you can knit it at a larger gauge because it is, fairly fluffy. But I also kind of like the idea of having something that's a little bit on the denser side as well. So we'll see. I will let the fabric tell me what this wants to be, whether it's the cloud sweater or the cloud blouse, or maybe none of those. Maybe I will revisit making the adult version of Karen pullover for myself. The Karen pullover is a children's knitwear pattern from my friend Sarah, Noelle Knits. I had sort of started a version myself with a different yarn, but like a completely different yarn. And then I scrapped it because I was like, what am I doing? I love Darcy's version so much because it's drops air, and I was not using drops air. So it just, yeah, so I will reattempt with my own drops air, because that's really what I wanted was a pullover drops air. It's a broken rib stitch pattern in that pullover, so it, and you actually can see the stitch definition. There is some still there. It's not completely lost in the drops air, so that may be what this becomes as well. And just as a comparison, if you want to see, is drops air at all similar to pom pom garland? That is kind of what I was curious about. And so this is a 50-gram ball of drops air. This is a 50-gram ball of pom pom garland. And you can just see the sheer like difference in volume, how much more air there is in air. Wow. And garland being like a denser because it's got a cotton core. It's not a blown yarn. It is just like a twist of cotton with alpaca kind of all around twisted in there. So different construction there for the yarn. So it's going to be different. Like I imagine this one's going to have more drape. It's going to like hang down more, the garland, in comparison to the drops air. So that may lend into my decision of which pattern I'll use for these yarns as well. So after I make the Sadie sweater, because I think that I'll get this kind of drape that the pattern sample has with garland, we'll see what the gray yarn turns into. So also from Wool Warehouse, it looks like a ton because the drops air takes up so much space. I also bought some sock yarn, and the keeners out there be like, sock yarn? Man, you don't knit socks. I don't knit socks yet. I I'm very intrigued by a pattern. I can't remember the name of the pattern, but Albina McLaughlin, is that her last name? I'll put it up. Has this sock pattern, which is like a contiguous method, but for socks. And I'm very intrigued, more so just to do the construction, not necessarily to have the socks. So who knows if I'll even do a second sock. Like I'll make the first sock and be like, oh, that was fun. And then that's the end of that journey. But I bought the Yarnsmith's Merino sock superwash from Wool Warehouse, 100 grams, 400 meters, 75% merino wool, 25% nylon. I just bought the white. Just, yeah. It feels really nice though. Especially in comparison to, this is the Drops sock yarn Fable, which is 75% wool, 25% polyamide. So this one is merino wool. This is in whatever wool. The Yarnsmiths is definitely softer and smoother, and the white is more white. The sunlight's coming in right now, but I think you might be able to see the subtle difference. The Drops Fable is like an off-white, warm, runs like antique white yellow, and this one I would say is more of a true white. Also might try to make some of the Petite Knits ruffle socks with this one. Yeah, for someone who's not a sock knitter and buys 2 sock quantities, getting crazy, maybe irresponsible. Speaking of irresponsible, so while I'm always looking at Wool Warehouse, I always check out, what other yarn is on sale. And I bought this yarn, and I'm kind of like, why did I go with this yarn? It's not really like a color that I'm into for the type of style of top that I think I would make, but it was on such a good sale, so I bought it. And it's Malabrigo yarn. Their base is called Susuro, which is a DK Sport 50% mulberry silk, 25% merino wool, 25% linen. So this would be something more of a summery project. And the color is called Pearl. It's being discontinued at Wool Warehouse. Whether that means that this yarn is actually being discontinued from Malabrigo, I don't know. But I got the last 2 skeins of it. It is definitely like a gray, warm gray color. But I was very intrigued by the fiber content with the linen and silk, especially after working on my Claire vest, which was a wool linen blend from Bramble Ridge. Now this one's got silk in it. Yeah, still intrigued by the summer fibers. I haven't done a whole lot of summer knitting, so you can see, I think, bits of the linen sticking out. And it's kind of like a single ply in terms of construction. Very floppy, would have lots of drape. So for this one, I was thinking of the, wow, my brain is not into names of things right now. Is it called the Poet Top from Sorry Norland? But I was thinking that this would be a good fiber choice for that top. Something I'm not gonna do this year, well into next year. If I cast this on, I get easily distracted. But that's also what I got from Wool Warehouse. If you've worked with this yarn, let me know. What did you think of it? I wonder, like with its kind of single ply construction, I don't know what it's going to mean for durability. Would this actually be good for that pattern? I don't know. Do I need something like more tightly spun, different construction for like a lacy top like that? I don't know. Wow, okay. Whew. When you don't record or film as frequently, it feels like the episodes are longer, but if you guys enjoyed hanging out with me, thank you for hanging out with me if you are still hanging out with me right now. Hoping for some more regular recordings. Well, hello, sun. Yeah, it's all like windows on top of me. Maybe I'll like do a quick shot of what I'm sitting in. Did I say I'm sitting in the solarium? I'm sitting in the solarium of our house. So it's kind of one of the selling features for me when buying this place. But yeah, now that we've got school years going, um, hoping to get back into some of my more regular programming, maybe spot the differences, maybe some performance reviews. Let me know what's some content that you have been missing from me, or do you just come here for the monthly podcast? Because that's also good too, because I of course enjoy sitting down for these. Thanks again for hanging out with me for today's video. I will see you next month for the next podcast episode. We'll see if I have time to release anything in between. But until then, happy knitting. Bye.